Bees My Way.
So this is the first video of Bees My Way, December 2023. It's about 32 degrees and snowing. I'm going to talk about why I'm doing these videos and how I got started. So it's about 6 years beekeeping now, quite a bit different today than it was 6 years ago. We started with my neighbor. He's still fully active in it, and he was a beekeeper in California and kind of got us rolling. And when I was a little boy, my grandfather was a beekeeper, and I remember that. So that was kind of the beginning of it. And I liked honey. I really didn't care about the bees that much. I just wanted honey, but it's changed into something else now. So one of the things we're going to talk about is general location. So we're in northeast Kansas, and in this area, there is not a lot of nectar to make honey for the bees throughout the year. We have, in our area, we have a lake on one side, and on the other side is pastures and cedar trees. And cedars provide no nectar for the bees. So in the springtime, we do pretty well here with trees providing nectar and pollen. But once you hit the summer, there's nothing going on here. So we have to get mobile. It took us years to discover that if we don't move our bees, we will not get any honey. So that's what we do. We have production hives that we move to other locations and make honey. And then we have hives here now that we use for resource hives for making bees and making queens. So this is my 7-foot horizontal hive. We run all deep frames. It's divided in half, and it's either 2, 3, or 4 individual beehives. It is insulated on the side, it's insulated on top, and it's insulated in the roof. It is 4 different colors. We actually call this hive the bear hive, rooster hive, the cow hive, and the pig hive. So these are our 8 production hives. They run in the single deep brood. We used to run a deep and a medium brood throughout the year. Last year we transitioned half our hives to single deep, and we found that we get as much or more honey running single deep, and it's much easier to manage single deep brood chambers than a deep and a medium brood. So we have 2 mediums here that we're going to get rid of in the spring. So all these hives are insulated. Some of these hives have been modified, as this one has, to make it easier when we move them to the production sites so that the wire doesn't tear the bottom of the styrofoam off, which it does on these. And when the wire tears the styrofoam up, then the bees chew the insulation up and requires a repair. And this is the standard configuration that we use that we feel makes us successful beekeepers. What we're doing is we are running a insulated telescoping cover. It's between 1.5 inches and 2 inches of styrofoam, depending on what was available. We tried not to buy it if we didn't have to, and the bees don't necessarily care. They just need some insulation on the roof. So we also run a queen excluder during honey production. We found that it's helpful. We did try without it, and we had a mess with brood up in the honey. And 1 year was enough of that. We're also running an insulated inner cover with a feeder that we use in the spring and fall to stimulate the bees to lay. You can't really put honey on the frames for winter, long-term winter survival. It's not enough. It's too small. But it works great for stimulating the bees to lay. So the other thing we're doing is we have built-in shim on our inner cover. Nothing worse than all the extra equipment that you have to store. And I didn't like that at all. So originally I started screwing my shims to my inner cover, and then I just started building the shims into the inner cover. So there's a hole inside to allow the bees to come through from the bottom to standard dimension on the bottom, and the bees come through and they get feed, and then we're able to fill this whenever we need. Plus we can put fondant, Hive-Alive fondant. We use that in the winter now, starting last year. Very successful with that. When we're not using the feeder, we have these plugs that we plug the hole up to keep the heat inside for the bees. So then, and this is the feeder that we use. We got it on the internet. Nothing fancy there. So One of the big things that we do that makes us different is we run an insulated hive all year long. It's basically a standard hive that is painted. When it's assembled, it's screwed and glued. It's fully painted, primed and painted, and then we put the 1-inch styrofoam on, glue it on, and then we paint them because the bees recognize shades of color and they also recognize patterns, and it helps prevent the drift. And our bees' hives are relatively close together when we're making honey. So we found that that's been beneficial. So in the wintertime, what we run basically is a condensing hive, no upper vent, and we found that we've been very successful with that. In the summertime, we do run a vent during honey production to allow bees access easier without running through the box and damaging themselves unnecessarily going through the queen excluder. So our screen bottom board has a removable tray that in the summertime we pull out to allow the beehive to be cooler for the bees. So with the insulation on the side, we know that we get less bearding because the bees are able to go out and get nectar and bring it back and be productive for making honey because the hive is cooler and they don't have to spend all that time on the outside bearding. We do get bearding, but not as much as hives that are not insulated. Because we're mobile for honey production, the bottom of our hives is an empty space. They didn't do it originally. And what happened is when we get to the new location and we pull the screen out, we would tear the bottom of the styrofoam off. And when we did, the bees would chew that styrofoam up. And once they started chewing holes to it, they tore it up bad. The other thing about the styrofoam, if you don't paint it, the sun will break it down. So because we're mobile, in order to make honey, ours are modified. If you're not mobile and your bees stay at the same spot all the time, I would run that all the way to the bottom. It looks better. Also, we run a standard reducer that, in the winter, small hole. In the spring and the fall, we run the larger hole. In the summer, during honey production, we run no reducer at all, full bore. So I've been doing it 6 years. I've taken one course, about a 3-hour course for basic beekeeping, and hundreds of hours of YouTube. During COVID, I watched a ton of videos, which I got a lot of ideas and modified those ideas and straight out copied some of them because they were great ideas. There's a lot of great information on the internet. You just got to look for it and then filter out what you don't like and use, what you do. There is every year something different for us. We keep changing. This single brood that we're doing now, last year we did half of our hives and we were very successful. So this winter we were entering all of them in single brood, and we are going to go all single brood honey production because it was successful last year. So that's what you do. You start out with part of it. If it's successful, then you move forward with it, or you change if all your bees die and you do something else. So some other things about how we do bees: we do active mite management. We do twice a year. We do feeding in the spring to stimulate laying, and in the spring sometimes the bees are hungry. They're short on food, so you need to make sure your bees don't starve, so you need to feed. We also feed in the fall to make sure our bees have enough honey to get through the winter. We don't normally do fall harvest, the last fall harvest, but you need to make sure you leave enough food, and if they can't make the food, you better give them something to make food. So the other thing we do is we do active temp monitoring of our hives. We use a broodminder sensor. I tried another one first and it didn't work out very well. I've been using broodminder for I think 3 years now, and it works great. An example, it's 32 degrees outside, and I know that the pig hive that I showed was 68 degrees with 73% humidity. And I can compare that with my other hives. I don't have humidity sensors in all my hives, but I have temp sensors in all the hives, and it lets me see what's happening. Not that I will change anything right now, but it may prompt me to make a change next year of something that I see now. And there's historical data there that I can see, and the data is on the internet. So obviously, it's my first video. I have no sponsors. Just so you know, Broodminder, really, it's the only one I'm really talking about. They didn't give me anything, but I love their sensors. I bought them 3 different times, and I don't intend to have any more hives than I have now, but if I did, I would buy more sensors. If you see something you like or you have questions about it, I do intend to make more videos. I can't say how many videos, but depends on the comments and if there's any interest in some of the stuff that I'm doing. I am going to do one more video at least, and the next one's going to be, I mean, I have made a lot of mistakes. 6 years of beekeeping, 6 years of anything, you're going to make mistakes. I don't mind talking about mine. So the worst ones, the ones that cost the most, is usually either going to be at cost in honey production or cost in dead bees. I'll do those 4 on the next video. So anyway, if you have any questions or comments, post it up, and have a good day.